Neo's backstory has been in our face for years, potentially all the way back to 2015. There's so much information that we have, and there's a lot to work with, and some people have started to piece a little bit together here and there, but I'm just baffled that no one has actually put it all together yet until now. So there's many different sources as to where this information comes from. There's the song lyrics, there's just what the writers have said, and there's just how the characters, who they are based off of, and also how they relate to other characters. There's a lot here to work with, so let's just go with the beginning all the way back to her origin. What was her childhood like? And we can get a little bit of answers from that from one thing, her song, which was in volume 6, I believe. Picking out a few lyrics, these are some notable ones. I was nowhere, I had no one, I felt nothing, lost without a voice and on my own. Then a candle's flame brought a brand new name. This is insinuating that she was alone before she met Roman. She had a rough childhood, something bad was happening to her. There was one thing to help escape the misery. Again, that's referring to Roman. After years of suffering, finally had a place to go. So this debunks the theory that Roman is her biological father because he didn't know her as a child or a young child. We don't know exactly when they meet. And then there's this other part, I had one thing and you've taken it from me, a single light, a single friend. This kind of debunks the lover theory that people have, that they're actually lovers. And based on the findings of this, of what I found, them being lovers may be pretty illegal, actually. So those two are kind of out of the running. So what really happened was she was alone as a child, probably abused. She was an orphan, probably. And Roman adopted her. Whether or not he legally did, that doesn't matter, but he found her, picked her up, and raised her. And this is all pretty common information. A lot of people already know this. However, there's one piece of the lyric that I just never thought of, and it only just now clued with me, that the lyrics say, then a candle's flame brought a brand new name. So candle's flame obviously referring to Roman. Roman is the candle's flame, Roman, torchwick, flame, what, I don't need to explain that. But then brought a brand new name, which basically confirms that Neapolitan isn't her birth name. She has another name. People were debating, is it Neapolitan or is it Neapolitan, right? Is there a space in between the word? I think the answer to that also confirms that Neo has an older name than Neapolitan. Basically, it's been confirmed that Neapolitan, one word, is the name. It's not Neapolitan, which means her last name is not Politan, which means that that is not her actual name. Neapolitan is not a full name. That is a nickname. That is a name that Roman gave her. A candle's flame brought her brand new name. Roman gave her a name. And this also maybe possibly confirms that her pink, brown, and white color scheme is actually her original form. Because a few people theorize, is that what she actually looks like? And I'm thinking maybe, but there is a little bit of evidence to say otherwise. Basically, we see this girl pop up a couple times, right? We see her in the tournament, and then in volume 7, I think it is, she disguises herself as an Atlas soldier. Black hair, green eyes. The green is important, and we'll get to that later. But going back to the name thing, from a writer's perspective, why would they confirm that Neo is not her actual name? That's because they're hiding her original name. Her original name has yet to be revealed, and it must be an important thing because it isn't revealed yet. Otherwise, they would have just stated that her name is, for example, Neapolitan. Why aren't they satisfied with that? So that means that there is more to her name than meets the eye. And the only way for her name to be important in any way is if it's a name familiar to us. The first name doesn't matter. Her first name, for all we care, could have been Bertha or something. It doesn't matter what her birth name was. It's her last name that matters, because that will relate her to other characters. That is the important name that they're hiding from us. And I think the answer has been in our face all along. I think the answer to that question is who she is based off of. A lot of people like to say that she's just a throwaway character because she was created to get Roman out of a sticky situation. And yes, that's exactly why she was made. She was put in the show 10 days after she was actually, the concept of her was created. It was that short of a time frame that they made her. So yes, back in volume 2, she was a throwaway character. Her power was a throwaway. The fact that she could teleport using glass, that was a gimmick character. However, it's by volume 3 that we really see the character get defined a little bit more, in that I think that is when the answer is revealed. But she was originally based off of a gender bend version of Roman, which you can see the cosplay here. That is what she's based off of. And yeah, clearly there's some similarities. But as I said, Volume 3 really starts to define her character and she becomes something unique. And that starts with her semblance. At first, her semblance kind of starts out as like a teleportation glass gimmicky thing, which she still carries on throughout the remainder of the series. However, in Volume 3, she also gets the addition of being able to shapeshift into other people. That is a very interesting clue. And whether or not you want to say the pink, brown, and white color scheme is her original form or not, she does really like to use this form, the black hair and green eyes like I mentioned before. So I think this information comes together, and I think we can actually find out who she was based off of, what fairy tale character or what mythology character she was based off of. And I think the answer is Loki. Well, not MCU Loki, but there are some elements in there with the green eyes specifically. Thanks to the MCU, a lot of people associate Loki with the color green, and I feel like that's what it's referring to. The long black hair from MCU Loki with the green eyes, the green color scheme, long black Hiddleston hair. I feel like that could be a little bit of a reference, but it's a little shaky. Like I said, that's not an overly important detail. But what is important is her powers. We can see on Britannica.com, in Norse mythology, Loki is a cunning trickster who has the ability to change his shape and sex. And you can see a lot of similarities. First of all, Neo can change her shape at will, but she can also change her sex in multiple ways, right? With Oscar, she became Oscar, but also because she was a gender-bent version of Roman, right? It all makes sense. Coincidentally, it comes together perfectly well. So the fact that she was based off of a guy but is a girl and is able to shapeshift into men and women and anyone she wants, that's Loki. A few people I've seen online have pointed that out and it makes a lot of sense, but I don't get why people haven't really thought about that more. There's no other character she could be based off of. But now let's get into the biggest part of Neo's character, and that is her silent voice, the non-existent voice. How does that relate to Loki? Well, in the mythology, Loki at one point makes a bet with some dwarf, and he offers to lose his head. And Loki does lose. However, he says, "You can have my head, but you cannot take any part of my neck." The dwarf was a little concerned. It's like, okay, what part? This is head, this is neck, but what part is this in here? So in the end, they decided not to cut off his head, but because of punishment for tricking them and being a sly asshole, they decided to sew his lips shut so he couldn't do that anymore. And now he's mute because of that. Neo doesn't talk. Whether or not it was coincidental or they did it on purpose, all of this lines up together so perfectly. But now we know, basically, at this point you could almost say that it's confirmed, not really, but she's based off of Loki. There's no other type of character that she could be based off of. All the evidence points to Loki. And now we go all the way back to her last name. Her last name has to be none other than Valkyrie. And the reason being, if you haven't put two and two together, Nora Valkyrie is based off of Thor. And if Loki is Neo, that means that they must be siblings. And their backstories are also very similar. Nora was an orphan for whatever reason. We have no idea. We haven't even met her parents yet. And same with Neo. It's assumed that Neo was homeless and was an orphan as well, and she got picked up and adopted by Roman, which is a little bit of a backwards of what happens in the mythology. So I don't believe that it's actually in the Norse mythology, but at least in the MCU, again, we're going to go with that, the more popular version of Loki. Loki is adopted by Odin and is therefore brothers with Thor. However, I don't believe, like I said, I don't think that's how it goes in the mythology, but doesn't matter. This is almost like a backward situation. She starts out with Thor and gets separated and gets adopted by somebody else. It's very similar, but at the same time, it's similar enough, I feel. So with all this, they have very similar origins, and they're probably based off of Thor and Loki, which means that Nora and Neo must be sisters. It also makes sense. They're the two shortest characters in the series. And what's interesting as well is Nora acts much like a big sister to other characters in the show, while Neo is the opposite and she almost feels like a bit of a child. However, one other little piece of detail that I'm saving for the end just because I don't know if it's true is, according to a user on Reddit, back in 2015, Miles Zuccari had said in an interview at RTX Australia that Nora has a sister that she's never met, and we might have already met her. I've tried searching for hours. I have no confirmation of this being true. Some people, I've asked people on Reddit, and a lot of them think that it's just misinterpreting what he meant and what he actually said, and maybe he was just reciting a theory. We don't know. If you guys have any information about that, tell me down below just to confirm or debunk it. That would be amazing. But if that's true, Nora not meeting Neo because they were separated at birth or because of whatever happened at their family, that would make a lot of sense. And we have already seen her because that would have been back in Volume 3, which means we've seen Neo. Nora hasn't met Neo at that point, and it all makes sense, right? I'm sorry, I'm starting to lose my mind. So just to sum everything up, Neo is Loki, Nora is Thor. They are related. Both of them got separated at birth and they became orphans because of whatever reason. And that might also confirm that maybe Nora and Neo's parents are Odin and possibly Barfalti, because those are both the fathers of Thor and Loki respectively. And from there, Neo was raised, which means that she's a couple years younger than Nora, which means she's still like a child, basically. She was taken in by Roman, trained probably by the best martial artists in the world, or maybe she was trained as a kid, or she was gifted by some kind of godly blessing. We don't know. Because if she is based on Loki, that means that there has to be some kind of godly entity involved in her childhood, or some kind of powerful entity at the very least. Or maybe just the struggles that she's been through. That's how she has all the skills that she does. But from there, one was raised up as a hero and one was raised up as a villain. And I'm hoping that sometime this volume, because some big stuff seems to be happening with Nora and Neo, I'm really hoping that we get a clash between them. That would be super cool. I mean, at this point, I feel like it's almost more than a theory. There's a lot of information here. There's no other character that she can really be based off of, and her history and as a childhood, it seems to be very similar to Nora. And them being related kind of puts everything together. So what do you think of all this? Let me know down below, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, subscribe for more RWBY content, give this video a like, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.